Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Welcome to this brief respite from the realities of life. Yes, there is a war in Ukraine. Yes, our second city has declared itself potless. And yes, our schools are crumbling around our ears. But we're here to offer you sanctuary and temporary reprise, or respite, by bringing you about an hour of digger porn and construction chat. For some reason, we have a lot of new machines to talk about today. We'll be doing that in just a moment. Now, I realise it's absolutely sweltering hot out there at the moment, so this is not the most appropriate giveaway we've ever done. But it is September. It is the UK. So in all likelihood, in about a week's time, we'll all be freezing our bits off and moaning about just how cold it is. Well, fear not. Together with our good friends over at Kinshofer, we have you covered. I have here, about my person, a nice woolly hat that will not only keep your noggin nice and warm, but it will also make you the envy of your workmates too. Now, if you'd like to win that, all I need you to do is type HAT into the chat, HAT into the CHAT, and you will be in with a chance of winning that. And I do think I've prepared something for this, just to remind you what you need to do. There you are. Type HAT into the chat. That alone should be easy enough to remember, shouldn't it? Now, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Yes, it is Wednesday, the 6th of September. I think it's Wednesday, the 6th of September anyway. Welcome to the garden earthly delights that is the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Kobelco serves up a fresh new excavator. Yanmar unveils a brand new compact wheel loader. We're taking a look at Husqvarna's unique product range. And we are celebrating 175 years of Wacker Neuson. Plus, as I've already mentioned, there is a Kinshofer woolly hat up for grabs as well, just to prepare you for the arrival of the. Now, let me have a look here. Bear with Jim. You nearly threw me. Then I'm sure that is. Was that yesterday's? Have I just played yesterday's? Well, I tell you what. I'll come back to it in just a second. Oh dear, everything's gone horribly wrong. We will get to all of that in just a second, but first, let's peer back quickly through the mist of time to see what was happening on this very day in history. And yes, Jim was absolutely right. For some reason, the button that I pressed played yesterday's question of the day. I'll come back to that in just a second because we do have a new one for you. Now, let me have a look. On this day in 1880, cricketer W.G. Grace announced his arrival, scoring 152 in his Test cricket debut against the Aussies. In 1889, Carnation produced its first ever can of evaporated milk. Loved that stuff when I was a kid. Probably still love it now, actually. In 1916, the world's first true supermarket opened in Memphis, Tennessee. It was called the Piggly Wiggly. And on this day in 1997, London and much of the UK was brought to a standstill for the funeral of Diana, Princess of Wales. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, I'm going to remind you of the proper question of the day for today, and it is this. Yes, our question of the day, yet again, comes from that mine of questions, Mr. Gary Muirhead. And that question is, if you had your life over again, what would you change and why? And I will update the chat in just a second so that you're constantly reminded about that. Under normal circumstances, I generally offer up my own answer to the question in the hope of inspiring some of you. But I'm not going to do that today. Instead, I'm going to share a genuine wish from a genuine friend of mine, sadly no longer with us. He'd been diagnosed with stomach cancer on 3 separate occasions, so he had very good reason to look back over his life, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I asked him pretty much the same question that Gary posted today, and my mate's answer was this. He said, I wish I'd told more women that they are beautiful. Not to chat them up, not to get anything in return, just because they are. I did actually promise myself that I would do this on his behalf when he passed. The trouble is, I'm now of an age where no matter how sincerely I say it, I would still just be seen as a dirty old man. But that's my answer. What about you? Let us know in the chat. If you had your life over again, what would you change and why? Now, let's start properly, shall we? I said at the top of the show that we have new machines to discuss, and we're going to start with just one of them. Those fine folks at Kobelco have pulled back the covers on a brand new reduced radius excavator, and it looks like this. Now, I have to be honest, I'm not the best person to judge that machine. I have an enormous soft spot for Kobelco equipment, and I'm pretty much sold as soon as I see that colour. But what about you? You know how these things work. That new Kobelco SK230 SRLC-7, good God, that's a mouthful. Is it hot or is it not? We'll come back to that after the show. And while you're doing that, just let me tell you that we have a new... we featured a brand new electric excavator from Demolition over on our electric earth moving equipment website. The machine is the first electric excavator launched since Doosan changed its name to Demolition. I haven't featured it here purely because all I had to work with was a pretty ratty photograph. So if you'd like to read about that, you'll be able to do so using the link that I'm about to post in the chat. That's the wrong button. It is this one. Yeah, you can see the Demolition machine over there. And just to keep you up to date, we are now up to 14 entries. There's a 1 in 14 chance of you winning that. If I take this off the screen, 1 in 14 chance of you winning that. So let me roll the next ad, and then we'll get back to the show in hand. I'm just going to address a quick question from the audience. Dan Cullen, morning, Dan. What happened to your Friday afternoon show? I abandoned it. And I abandoned it not because of lack of demand. If anything, it was actually on an upward slope. It was too much. I do have a nasty habit of taking on too much. So no, that something had to give. And on a Friday afternoon, when I'm generally writing my column for the next week, that was the thing that had to give. Peter McKenna says, I love Kobelco, but I'm not strong with zero swing machines. They can be a tad unstable at full reach with a full bucket. Discuss. I've always wondered that about short tail, reduced tail swing, zero tail swing. How are they to operate? I know the manufacturers like to tell us how good they are, but how good are they in reality? And we are now up to 16 entries for our Kinshofer hat. I think some people are sensing some cold weather approaching, so that is up for grabs as well. Now, from new Kobelcos and new Demolitions to new Yanmars. And by way of a change, this machine is not an excavator, but a compact wheel loader. This is what she looks like. video certainly gets your attention, doesn't it? We've got another one like that in just a second. I realise we've already posed rather, our hot or not question in relation to that Kobelco machine. So if you like that new unit from Yanmar, please type Yanmar hot into the chat so I can come back to it at the end of the show. Speaking of the chat, don't forget we are now at 16 entries. If you would like to win a Kinshofer hat, there's only one up for grabs. This is the last. Type hat into the chat. HAT. Shouldn't be easier. Couldn't be easier. Now, I think we need this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Fluid analysis. Think of it like a blood test for a piece of equipment, but rather than extracting blood, it extracts oils and fluids. And rather than diagnosing diseases, it identifies the presence of wear material that could be a sign of imminent downtime. Well, this is Volvo's take on the process.
Volvo fluid analysis is the best way to maximize a machine's performance and ensure uptime. It can help identify minor maintenance issues before they become major repairs. Did you know nearly 80% of all hydraulic malfunctions are due to contamination in the system? Not only can these malfunctions prevent the operation of a machine, but it can also hinder its performance, causing inefficient cycle times, which can have a major impact on your customer's business. Fluid analysis isn't just for hydraulic oil. It's available for virtually any fluid inside your machine. Whether it's engine oil, transmission fluid, coolant, DEF, or diesel, early identification of contamination and wear is the key to uptime. Contaminated machines can experience performance decreases up to 20% before the operator discovers that something's wrong. Fluid analysis is more than just identifying contaminants in a system. It also identifies the age, type, and overall condition of the fluid, which can help measure component life and increase uptime. Routine fluid analysis can achieve substantial savings in maintenance by allowing your customer to perform predictive maintenance rather than reactive repairs. Keeping the systems clean and evaluating fluid condition is top priority to ensure these high-performance machines are up and running as they're supposed to.
Yeah, I was writing about Caterpillar's oil analysis system about 30 years ago, so I know this is nothing new, and I know, let's have a look, Peter McKenna has said, also do fluid testing. They certainly do, as do, I'm fairly sure Komatsu do it, I know Hitachi do it, a bunch of others as well, and also companies like, certainly Pertec do Hydroquip do it, although wasn't Hydroquip bought by Finning certainly do it because the Caterpillar connection. But hey, that was Volvo, and that's never a bad thing, is it? Now, let's have a spot of this, because I've got a pretty sexy video coming up for you next.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Husqvarna. You might know them for their gardening equipment. Personally, I know them as the only viable alternative to Brock in the field of demolition robots. But as you're about to see, there's way more to Husqvarna than just that. Yeah, impressive product range, and I think you'll agree, even more impressive video. Now, we have just one more clip to share with you this morning. That means you have approximately 2 minutes in which to type the word HAT, H-A-T, into the chat for your chance to win an exclusive Kinshofer noggin warmer. So get typing, people. We need one of these, and then we've got our final clip.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
JCB is 78 years old. Caterpillar is 98 years old, and Komatsu is 102 years old. But by comparison, all of these major brands are mere whippersnappers, because Wacker Neuson is 175 years old this year.
Happy anniversary.
The roots of the company date back to the year 1848.
From the beginning, our focus was on the requirements of our customers.
We are a global company. We stand for innovation.
We're a unique company of 6,000 employees.
We are proud to be part of such a strong and dedicated team.
Yeah, going to hop over to the chat based on that. Dan Cullen says, wow, 175 years. What a feat. Yeah, absolutely. Gary Muirhead echoes that. Would never have thought that. 175 years old. Wow. Wow, indeed. 175 years old and still created some of the industry's most innovative products as well. Now, we've had a couple of people arrive a bit late in the chat. Stephen Guthrie, who, in addition to all his injuries, has now got a seasonal cold virus. Come on, Stephen, sort yourself out, would you? But you've still got time to type HAT into the chat. And our friend Ben Hanratty is here as well. Good morning, he says. You too have time to type the word HAT into the chat before I throw over. Now, I am going to put up, when I can find the damn thing. There we are. That's where we are at the moment. I'm going to give those two gentlemen and anybody else a final couple of seconds. Yes, we are looking at 17 entries at the moment, which is very good for a midweek morning. If anybody else would like to type the word HAT into the chat in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Too late. We're drawing. Jim Turner. Jim Turner has won again. I say won again. Jim has been probably our unluckiest entrant to so many competitions, but he won a couple of days ago. I think it was probably Friday last week. And his goodie box has arrived. Well, there's another one going to you. There we are. Jim Turner. There is that will be going in the post for you today, just as soon as the show is over. Now, there is no gripe of the day today, primarily because, well, I've got plenty to moan about, let's put it like that, but I've got to get out the door at 11 because I have somewhere to be. So I also want to see what you're all saying in the chat. So I tell you what, let me skip forward in my usual script. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, look after your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Now, do you know, it occurred to me first thing this morning, I've now ended well over 600, it's more like 700 shows with that very phrase, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. In fact, I don't even think about the words as I say them. In fact, it's got to the point now where if I say to somebody, look after yourself, I have to fight the urge to then follow up with your family, your friends, and your colleagues. That sentence actually stems from the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, which actually prompted the start of these shows in the first place, when people were dying in their hundreds and their thousands. I now say it without a great deal of thought, but we should never forget the origins of that sign-off. Please, 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 please look after yourselves, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Now, if you don't have time, please go and have a fantastic day. But if you do have the time and the inclination, stick around, because the crack will begin immediately after this final word from our key show sponsor. Good morning. Good morning. I didn't enter today, so rerun it, or somehow it. See now what it. Let me explain how this works. The system picks up purely the letters that I type into the giveaway tool. Now, I when we go through the chat, although Jim Turner says he hasn't entered, at some point he has typed the word that or what or something like that has contained the letters HAT. So if Jim doesn't want the hat, and as we're all still here, let me put this up again and I can draw it again, because, well, why not? Glenn Johnston is our alternative winner. Jim Turner has been banned for steroid abuse or something like that, and now you've stepped up on the podium. Glenn Johnston, please let me know your full postal address, and I will get that into the post for you today. Let me get rid of that. Glenn, congratulations, and thank you very much indeed for doing that, Jim. That's fantastic stuff. Peter McKenna says he didn't see his name in the draw. I can rerun it. Not that it really matters a great deal. Let's have a look. No, I'm not seeing your name either. Not sure what's gone wrong there. Listen, it's beyond my control. I just set the thing up. And Ken, sorry, you haven't won. The hat has already gone. Glenn Johnston's got that. When we go back through the chat, I'll see what we can do. Now, a couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Let me take this off the screen and share screen, and I wanted to show you this. So, for the last week or so, we've all been talking about the fact that our many of our schools are on the verge of collapse due to the use of aerated concrete, cheap as chips, light as anything, crumbles like a McVitie's hobnob. I saw today that, now let me think, who was it? I think it may have been CJ Charlton Group who had put out a LinkedIn post saying if a school anywhere nearby has issues with RARC, then get in touch. Meanwhile, our friends over at the Construction Leadership Council have set up an expert panel. Yes, nothing gets schools fixed better than quicker than an expert panel. The other thing that I wanted to share with you was, well, I'm not going to share it, but one of the things that I wanted to mention was Birmingham Council being declared effectively bankrupt. It happened, I think it was announced actually while I was online yesterday, and it's taken a while for me to process it. But you think about the impact that could potentially have on the state of the construction industry. You think about all the construction companies, demolition companies, plant hirers and stuff that are already working with local authorities like Birmingham Council. They also have a major influence on the fate of construction contracts from roads, schools, hospitals, utilities, leisure, but they also have their finger on the pulse in terms of planning applications for things like housing. So yeah, I can imagine that that news coming out of Birmingham could have major implications for the construction industry. Now, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chat, which is where I needed to be in the first place. Switch up the camera angle and see where we are. I think, Peter McKenna was first off the chat, first off the mark this morning. Morning, Alk, he says. I think that's all. Dan Cullen, his partner in crime, was second off the mark as well. Peter McKenna says, hope you're all having a good week. Yeah, it's been very good. Lots and lots to report on. Lots going on, which is always quite nice. There is our eventual winner, our stand-in winner, Glenn Johnson. As I say, Glenn, don't forget to let me have your postal address. I'm sure you've done it in the past, but please don't do so again. Excuse me, I've got a bit of beard in my mouth. Gary Muirhead is here. Thank you again for the question of the day today, Gary. I will come to the answers of that in just a second. Now, I'm fairly sure that this is the person that called me uncle yesterday. Now I'm old man. How are you doing? I'm doing okay. And it's hard to deny the old man bit because, you know, I'm looking increasingly like Santa. About time for a trim, I believe. Stephen Guthrie's here as well. Morning, folks. Thanks for the goodie box. It arrived last night. Fantastic stuff. That's at least one of these various postal receipts that I can throw away. Yes, enjoy, Stephen. Get well soon, my friend. Andrew Croft is in the house. Morning, Andrew, from LinkedIn Land. Hope you're fit and well. There is Chris Ford, singer to the stars. Greetings and good morning. I'm sure he said that in a sing-song voice. I hope he did. How the bejesus are we? I'm guessing that's a fairly sunny morning. Yeah, it certainly is here. Morning horses, Mark Whiting. Morning, Mark. Andy Dyson's here as well, another of our previous winners. And Jim Turner, a recent winner, a very recent winner, and then a stepped-aside winner. And Glenn Johnston has the hat as a result. So there was the question of the day, courtesy of our friend Gary Muirhead. If you could be a TV... No, that's not the one. That's the wrong one. That was yesterday's. I'll come back. Lots of entries flowing through there. Kerry Jones is with us again. Good morning, Kerry. Thank you very much indeed for being here. So Peter McKenna did enter. For some reason, Peter, it just didn't pick up your entry. Now, here's an interesting thing. Gary Muirhead, I don't know if you've got my home bugged. You wouldn't hear much because I'm asleep most of the time. Your question of the day, what's your favourite brand of 180-degree excavator? I was sat there chatting to my son Fred last night about these questions of the day, and all of the questions of the day are incredibly random. I mean, it rather depends what Gary comes up with, how I'm feeling on a certain day or whatever it might be. But we have strayed a bit from the core of this, you know, the core content of this show. And I was actually thinking we could do the various types of equipment. So, you know, who is your favourite brand of backhoe loader? Who is your favourite brand of wheel loader? Who is your favourite brand of ADT, midi excavator, mini excavator, big excavator, and so on down the line? I may revisit that. I won't do it this week, but I think we may have a run of those coming up. Peter McKenna as the Pilgrim Fathers set sail from Plymouth in the Mayflower bound for the Americas and the New World. Apparently, they'd originally set sail from Southampton on the 5th of August, but were beset with problems. The problems were only just beginning. Kent Hatch is here as well. Morning, Kent. Question of the day. Cat. Not sure. On XMCL tyres. Okay. He's actually answering Gary's other question of the day. Thank you. It all makes sense now. Peter McKenna. They're all getting too similar. About time we had a change of subject. Okay. Thank you. We may well do that. I would not have gone into the venture and spent £75,000 or £875,000 to lose a lot. Bought a no more house. Yeah, that is going to sting. With no mortgage. Quite right. Question of the day. The actual question of the day: what one thing would you change if you're in your life if you had your time over again? Question of the day: nothing, because I might not have met you guys and gals. Well, that's fantastic, isn't it? Mick Norton has just said notable news: EV sales Jan to June 23 show of 152,968 EVs sold. Just 37,000. That's 24% were bought by private buyers. EVs remain deeply unpopular with range anxiety, huge purchase price, poor availability of charging systems, and the completely unknown second-hand value. That's a good point. And listen, I'm still, despite the fact that we have our electric earth-moving equipment website up and running, featuring the Demolition machine, as I've already mentioned. Am I still convinced that electric is the way? I am convinced of the viability of electric machines in certain applications. But until a major rental company actually says, do you know what? I think they've got a point. I still wonder if we're going to have exactly the same thing. Things like range anxiety, purchase price, availability of charging, I think all of those will be replicated right here in the construction business. Here is a proper question of the day. If you had your life over again, what one thing would you change? As I said, and I don't mind naming him, my old mate used to work for MBW here in the UK, up in Bolton. And as I say, he had a couple of scares with cancer before it finally got him. But I did have the opportunity to say, if you had your time over, what would you? And he literally, within 2 seconds, he went, I just wish I'd told more women that they were beautiful. Not for any personal gain, not because I'm trying to chat them up, just because they are. He told me that probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. And there are still times when listen, happily married man and all that, but sometimes you walk past a woman of varying ages and you think, I should tell them, just in Larry's honour, but I just look like a lech, don't I? Which is unfortunate. Mick Norton then says, good morning. Mick, thank you for joining us. What do you make of the CLC's expert panel to address the RARC issue? Just what we need is an expert panel, isn't it? There is the link to the electric Demolition machine. You can go and take a look at that when all of this is done and dusted. Yeah, have to come clean. I wish I had the time. I wish I could clone myself. I can semi-clone myself in as much as I could probably create a show using AI, I guess, to actually deliver the show without me needing to be there. But my calendar is just so busy, and as I say, Friday afternoon I'm either writing or I'm researching my weekly column for the Monday morning, and it just got to the point where I just didn't have the time, and I missed one, and there wasn't a big furore about it. So I'll miss another one, and then I missed another one, and then by that point it's like, well, this is probably done and dusted, isn't it? One of these days we will get another big advertiser on board who will pay me lots of money, and maybe I'll be able to outsource some of this sort of stuff, unless any of you fancy presenting the construction equipment show on a Friday afternoon, ideally free of charge. That'd be nice. Now Peter McKenna says, I love Kobelco, as do I, but I'm not strong with zero swing machines. They can be a tad unstable at full reach with a full bucket. Is that common among you guys? Let me know. Today's question of the day: I would have stuck in at school and studied more rather than looking out the window watching diggers in a field outside. However, it delivered you, Gary, to where you are now. I'm assuming that you met wife and had children after your passion for diggers hit. So swings and roundabouts. Let's have a look. Looks a long track on that Kobelco, says Ken Hatcher. I'll have to go back and have a look at that. Dan Cullen says the 20-tonner is well stable compared to the 13-ton. And as long as the track's facing the right direction. It's a key point. Peter McKenna says, I've never found a problem for room in Kobelco. I'm 6'6" with fairly standard size 11 feet. I find they are more comfortable than some well-known brands. Standard size 11 feet. I think you'll find standard is size 8, which is what I'm stood on. I'm not stood at all, but I'm sat on. You get the idea. Let's have a look. Lots of entries for the for the various competitions there. There we are. Jim Turner took the shortcut and said hot for both machines. Do you know, I'm not entirely sure we've ever actually had a not hot response to any of the machines that we featured on either here or over on the construction equipment show on the Friday afternoon when we were doing it. Doosan also do fluid testing. Yeah, a lot of major manufacturers do. I think with some of them, it's actually part of their repair and maintenance packages. Chris Forward says, had some New Hollands at one stage. They were nearly a Kobelco, but their parents never married. You know, that is a lot. That's kind of how brand deals work, isn't it? They're almost a thing, but not quite a thing. If you scratch the paint off, you can see that maybe they were something else underneath. Peter McKenna says, think you should be on stage, Chris Ford. I agree. Singing and dancing. I tried it, Peter, but unfortunately I found the trapdoor. Maybe you weren't singing the right song. Demolition news. Peter McKenna, loving the upbeat music. I think you should feature that on the Craic. This is fairly upbeat, isn't it? I think. I can only just hear it. Gary Muirhead, did you not feature one of their safety helmets on the show? That was Husqvarna. And yes, if memory serves me correctly, I did do that. Incidentally, bear with. Some months ago, I was sent a hard hat, and it looks like this. It's one of these newfangled ones, and the reason it's newfangled, well, A, it's got chin straps, but also it's got one of those in it. I think this is called the MIPS system, and that basically, let me see if I can demonstrate it that way. You see that? That moves about. And supposedly, that is to prevent or to reduce brain injury. Because apparently, if you fall and land on your head, one of the key issues that you're facing is the fact that your brain kind of twitches inside your head. The idea of that is that your head does the twitching and your brain stays where it is. I'm going to be giving that away. It's been sat on my desk, on my office floor for about a year now. I've never had it on my head because I've already got a hard hat, and I quite like it. So I'm going to be giving that away. If anybody is in need of a hard hat, keep watching because we'll be doing that at some point. May even do it tomorrow. Peter McKenna says, I'm sat here crying. Why? I'm guessing that's Chris Ford setting you off. Stephen Guthrie, who just seems to be in the wars right now. There it is, the final nail in the coffin. Sore throat when I got up. Now I've got the seasonal cold, virus 2. 2 lines straight away. 175 years for Wacker Neuson. Yeah, absolutely right. Peter McKenna says, I'm glad I'm not visiting. That would be hospital admission for me within days of catching it. Off you, Stephen. Yeah, quite right. I'm sat here doing a bit of this. Keep away. Ben Hanratty has just joined. Oh, I say just joined us. Joined us a little while ago. Chris Ford, I feel 175 years old. Nearly as old as my comments. Certainly as old as some of your jokes. Well done, Jim. Well deserved. But then Jim put it back in the drawer. There we are. Saturday's prize was amazing. Thanks. Those of you that are in the WhatsApp group may have seen Jim actually posted a picture of himself wearing some very smart block safety glasses. I look like a bit of a pelican, and he looks like a Hell's Angel. The beard, he's got a proper beard. I'm just playing at it. I can only apologise for that, Peter. Try again. I'm sure we'll be doing another draw at some point. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen, timely. Hope you're all staying hydrated today, guys. Yes, please do that. Please do that as part of your looking after yourself. Peter McKenna says courts and car parks are now being reviewed. Well, those of you that have seen our 2 episodes on the state of car parks will know that a review of car parks is not likely to come out with good news. Ken Hatcher says, surely the school will have to be knocked down. Some of them, I'm not entirely sure if they will be completely flattened, but certainly portions of them could well be. And as I say, I mean, I saw this morning, I'm fairly sure it was Chris Charlton's group basically offering their services. That's That's what's required. I mean, bearing in mind, we've got, I think it's 100 schools identified. There could be another 7,000. In addition to the issue with aerated concrete, we could also have issues with asbestos as a result of removing this concrete. It's got to be done by experts. Those experts, to my mind, are the demolition contractors in the UK, at least some of them. What we don't need is more bureaucracy. Bureaucracy has brought us to the point where schools are crumbling and there are potentially classroom roofs falling on children's heads. What we don't need is a panel of experts meeting in 3 months' time in some fancy hotel. What we need right now is action. We can't rely on government to do that because, frankly, it's them that put us in the situation in the first place. So what we actually need is some action from some people that know what they're doing. I'd love to see who's on that expert panel. Haven't seen yet, although I think it's headed up by the main man at the CLC, but you can expect it to be the same old faces as it always is. You know, there'll be somebody from Build UK, somebody from the NFDC, and it's the same old faces, all chewing the fat the same as they always do, and moving nothing whatsoever forward. The UK is in a bad way, unfortunately. I try not to buy into that. I do try desperately hard not to buy into that. But when, as I say, when you see our second city is actually bankrupt, or effectively, I know they're using the language very carefully, effectively bankrupt. I don't know why they're effectively bankrupt. They don't have the money to pay their bills. Therefore, they are bankrupt. And that's our second city. And obviously, it's going to have a knock-on effect. My primary concern, obviously, because of what I do for a living, is going to be the construction and demolition sector in and around Birmingham. But think about that from local people. Now, Birmingham have already made promises about maintaining things like social care and waste collection and that kind of thing. But if you can't afford to pay your bills, something's got to give. And, you know, it's... unfortunately, I think when something gives, it's going to be the public, the residents of Birmingham. They're going to suffer the most. Don't feel bad, Peel. Shit happens. Yes, shit does happen. As I say, it's a system. What can I do? Based on the CLC's past record, don't expect a speedy solution. Yeah. I'm bearing in mind what we've got here. I said this when we very first announced the details of this RARC crisis, or RARC debacle as I called it. There will be a bunch of children out there who have already missed the best part of 2 years proper education, you know, face-to-face in classrooms due to the COVID crisis and the ensuing lockdown. And we've now got another reason that they can't attend school or can't be face-to-face with their teacher. This is one of those things that doesn't, we can't wait for it. You know, I know by all accounts, we sort of waived the standard of examinations for those that were coming out of school and coming out of university at the, you know, literally as COVID was raging. We can't keep doing that. You know, we're going to have an entire generation of children at this rate that have had an undermined education because of COVID, but then also because of the inaction of the government and the likes of the CLC. Could you imagine the road infrastructure for that area too? Yeah, think about that. I mean, one of the things that sprung immediately to mind when I was reeling off the list of things that a city council will take care of, and I've mentioned it many times, specifically in relation to JCB's Pothole Pro. But potholes they're a very emotive subject. You know, that they can win or lose local elections for people and that kind of thing. But they're also quite expensive. How big a priority are Birmingham's potholes right now? I would imagine if there was a list, potholes just did that. They fell to the bottom of the pile. Had a busy week so far, everything going to plan. That's always a good sign. I was the same gym, I didn't enter either, but I saw my name pop up. How? Again, I think it is going to be the fact that you've typed that or hat or what or something. I'm going to be more careful with my namings. I was going to say type the word Kinshofer, but it gets spelt wrong a lot. And maybe that's why we had an exceptionally large number of entrants yesterday. Today, rather. Sorry. Where we are. I got the T-shirt yesterday. Thank you, Mark. Good. Fantastic news. And there is let me think. There's another T-shirt sat here waiting to go to you as well. I'm going to the post office shortly. Question of the day. I probably have my own company by now if I've not been partying in my late teens to early 30s. Yeah. Didn't we all? You might not be here now had that happened. Quite right. Question of the day. Jim Turner says, I'd have saved more money so I could have invested in property sooner. Yeah, I wish I'd listened to my dad a bit more. Andy Dyson, I can do that. Can you share the Electric Devil on link in LinkedIn, please? I will do that as soon as the show is over. Not a problem. 26 degrees in Preston. Good Lord. I thought it just rained up there. Chris Ford, the opportunity to have bought shares in Apple when they first started. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Jim Turner says, still cool and misty here at the moment. Needs to warm right up, though, as my grass is being turned as we speak. Peter McKenna says, what's the easiest way to kill your wife? I don't think we want to discuss that. Peter McKenna, standard 6'6", maybe in your world, but not mine. Not mine either. I'm with Peter. Size 11 is standard size. It's like the land of the giants here. The only trouble with telling more women that they are beautiful is that in this day and age you'd be charged with sex harassment. Yeah, and isn't that a sad thing? And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but when not this house, but when I moved to a previous house, we bought the house off plan. So when we first arrived, the roads hadn't been adopted. Waste collections were a bit sporadic, and various other bits and pieces. The town the housing development that I was living on was about a mile, almost exactly a mile from the local train station, and therefore the local shops and everything else. And for a brief period, I was the head of the Residents Association. And one of the ideas that I had was kind of a carpooling service, because to go from this housing development into Epsom, you basically had to drive, or from my house, I had to drive right the way through the housing development to get out onto the main road to go down to Epsom town centre. And I said, I regularly drive past people that are walking that way. How about we have a carpooling system whereby I have a badge in my window and I can just pull over and say, if you go to Epsom, hop in because I'm going that way anyway. And you would have thought that I proposed axe murdering. There were. Funnily enough, it was the other way round. Primarily, it was men saying, I can't do that because I know I will pick up a woman who will get in the car and cry rape. Isn't that a shame? It never happened. Never happened. Wait to you see, we'll end up with children being homeschooled and online as a remedy. Yeah, I think you're right. London next to go down the pan. I wouldn't be at all surprised. His phone never put. No, not sure. Mick Norton says hundreds of thousands of kids play truant on a daily basis. Parents need to pull their fingers out and get them back to school, assuming that their school is actually open for business. Possibly a lot of parents will have to give up work if they decide to homeschool. And who can afford to do that? And where are the checks and balances? My daughter homeschools 2 of her children. I'm not convinced. They've set up a classroom in the house and they do the hours and everything else. But my daughter was not the sharpest tool in the box. I'm not entirely convinced by homeschooling, at least with some people anyway. And as I say, all of the while this is raging, the CLC is proposing expert panels. Because expert panels will stop the roofs falling down, won't they? Yeah. Men are afraid to compliment women now as more likely offended, being complimented as they now think they're masculine. Not so sure it's quite a case of feeling masculine, but what a crazy world we've allowed ourselves to live in. You know, even things like, you know, I was raised in a certain period of time, and I do things like I hold doors open. I don't just do it for women, I do it for anyone. But primarily, I guess I do it for women, particularly if you're out in the shops and they've got armfuls of shopping. And yet we do have some people in our midst that would be offended by that. And I can't be bothered to explain the fact that I would do the same for a bloke as I would for a woman. I'm just holding the door open. I'm not doing anything here. I'm kind of trying to be helpful. You know, and what a ridiculous situation that you can't say to somebody. Can I tell you a story? Right? Okay. So some years ago, this is pre-COVID, I had to go to a meeting in London, and it was quite cold. It was like November, December time. So I had a real heavy tweed suit on, shirt and tie, and I have to admit, even by my own judgment, I was looking pretty damn dapper. Things had gone well that day. It looked right. The shoes were right, the shirt was right, the tie was right, and everything else. I got on an underground train. Now, bearing in mind, at the time, I'd have been probably mid-50s. And a young guy, probably half my age, if not slightly less, got on wearing something not dissimilar. He was in a tweed suit as well. And he got on the train, he looked me up and down, he nodded, and he just went, "Nice outfit." Made my week. Here we are, several years later. I'm still talking about it. I did not take offence. I did not think he was trying to chat me up. I didn't think he was trying to take advantage of me or harassing me. He just paid me a compliment and made my bloody day. How hard can that be? Andy Darvell, sorry I'm late to the party. Good morning, Mark, and everyone. Not a problem at all. We do not penalise for people being late. I thought you had to be out the door at 11 o'clock. I do. I've got 6 minutes. People, go. Thanks for the reminder, Graham. I do appreciate that. Yeah, I'm heading off to go and see my daughter in just a second. So, yeah, go and have a good day. Glenn, if you haven't done so already, please let me have your postal address so that I can get this Kinshofer hat out to you just before the bad weather returns. And I'll be back tomorrow, possibly giving away the hard hat, assuming I can find a box to put it in. If not, I'll find something else to give you. But until then, everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Thank you for all your input. Yeah, have a good one. All the best.